Welcome to Livingston Football Club. It is a quick chat between myself and Blair Coburn, one of our social media team, head videographer and everything else. We have collated some of the feedback from the social media survey which we put out. When did it go, Blair?
Put in about start of, where are we now, July? Probably start of July.
Start of July. So we've had quite a lot of feedback, which is good. We wanted to acknowledge that feedback, talk through a couple of points, things that we maybe could do better, things that are maybe in place already or in the background ready to go, and things that we're currently doing as well. So we just wanted to kind of talk through that and let you know where we were. There will be more surveys coming out as well, so we just want to kind of be honest, transparent and everything else and get it out there and let you know that we are actually listening and it's not just a tick box in the background. So that's where we are.
I think that fan feedback's very important, isn't it? I think ultimately for us as a club, it's who obviously your key customer base, as it were, if you're talking in kind of business sense. But yeah, I think positive engagement for the survey, which was pleasing.
I think it's the old everything is rosy until you actually hear differently. So it's actually nice to hear from people, and there was a lot of very good feedback as well.
I think it
constructive.
I mean certainly it was mostly positive. I think in a lot of these general kind of feedback or reviews, I think in general in life, I think it can be quite easy, I think, for the more negative things to come to the fore, but it was really positive to see so many good items kind of come to the fore from a lot of people, which was good to see.
Absolutely. So we've broken it into short form content, long form content, pre-match, match day content, 30 years of Livingston, events throughout the year, and just some general other feedback as well. So we've kind of ticked everything off that you guys have done online. So again, thanks very much for that. We do appreciate it. We'll start with the short form stuff. So run through some of the requests. So more player interviews, TikTok, match day prep, quick fire with the new signings, just more. Give us all the content. Fan cam to show the limbs when we score, and retro highlights as well. So the player interviews and stuff, I think we're kind of getting there a wee bit more now, especially the new signings, we're a wee bit more proactive with it.
Yeah, I think that was probably quite a good addition, I would certainly say, over the summer break. Obviously we had quite a lot of new faces in the door over quite a short space of time, quite difficult probably to keep up with in that sense, but I think a lot of credit to yourself, Connor, got in fairly quickly once everybody was kind of back in the building and probably got a flavour for what the guys were like, what their kind of personality was like. But I think for us that's always been a bit of a challenge, and it's something we've kind of always spoke about and acknowledged in terms of probably what goes on during the week. I think that was one of the overwhelming elements that people probably wanted to see more of, so hopefully something we can address this season with a couple more people coming on board.
I think there was a few kind of comments in regards to that as well, that it was a wee bit samey and everything else. We were kind of time constricted as well, so we only had maybe a couple of minutes per player because we were doing other media duties or in the building or signing contracts or doing everything else, so it does make it quite difficult, but it's good to acknowledge and try and get it out there as quickly as we possibly can so you get something, and then after that we can look to kind of build on that as well, can't we?
Yeah, exactly that, and I think that was probably for us collectively what we wanted to drive from the survey predominantly. I don't think it's really a secret in terms of time and what we have available to us. It's probably trying to make the best use of what we have in that sense. So if it's more aligned with what people want to see, exactly as you kind of say, to get that initial flavour and then build on that, I think it's definitely the way to go, and it seems to align with what people were wanting.
Absolutely. We've got Zach last pre-match as well, post-match, sorry, so you might get more of Zach and his baldy napper, as he said, so keep an eye out on that sort of stuff. Fan cam, that's quite a big one for me. I love the fan cam stuff. I think we did a little bits here and there last year, but something we could maybe become more consistent with. I think
we saw that probably in the bigger games, the likes of the
Queen's
Trust Trophy final, up in Dingwall. I mean, that's the scenes you want to see as a football fan, let's be honest. Certainly now this season I would like to think, given where we are in terms of both league and probably stadiums that we'll be playing at, I think that makes that probably a wee bit more easier, and certainly for us, again, for a resource point of view, hopefully something we can do most weeks, and hopefully there are very good scenes.
Absolutely. And just a final bit on the short form stuff, retro highlights against previous opponents. We have kind of dabbled in that a little bit previously. Can be difficult to get some of the content from before, which maybe does make it slightly more difficult to produce stuff, because we quite like that sort of stuff as well. Going out Wednesday, Thursday, part of the build-up, everything else, but it can be quite difficult to actually get the content that we require.
Absolutely that. I think if anybody's probably garnered into the depths of YouTube and kind of archive footage, etc., it is quite difficult in the sense that we're probably relying quite a lot on, there'll be a period probably between 2001 and 2005-ish from our first stint in the Premier League, which is very accessible. Probably the bigger games from that we can get quite easily. probably less so that period, probably from then till maybe 2017 odd, where we're relying probably on the Livy TV archive, which is excellent, and we've used that for a couple of games recently, and then obviously more probably in the last 10 years or so, a lot of what we have access to is there. So yeah, certainly something we want to add as a kind of routine within the pre-match staple. That was obviously something that featured quite heavily in a lot of people's feedback. So
yeah, absolutely.
Definitely, I mean, for us it's an easy win. If people want to see it, quite happy to facilitate.
Can I clip it and go from there? Perfect. I'd say there was a couple of little bits here. TikTok, quickfire with new sign-ins, just give us more. So I think we are kind of working hard in the background, new ideas. We do have monthly media meetings as well, so you presented the kind of feedback at the media meeting there, but it's certainly stuff that we're looking to continue on with, and I say keep shouting, it's not a bad thing. We'll try to take it on board, and we'll hopefully continue to provide some wonderful short form content. The longer stuff, I'm going to start, it's top of the list, I'm going to start with my baby, which is Down the Vale. There is more coming, which you'll be glad to know. Hopefully, I think it's went down relatively well so far. The consistency is not the level that we wanted to hit. It is off. A couple of different challenges that we are renting space from another company. It's been difficult to try and get the boys, obviously with it being summer holidays. Ex-players work 9 till 5 as well, which is when we can get the space as well. So there is a few different challenges. So we do want to make it more regular, more consistent. We're looking at another option of kind of bringing it in-house as well, so we can do bits here, which should hopefully tick that box as well.
Absolutely. I think in terms of what the top items from the feedback were, I think a lot of people were really complimentary about the podcast. I think you deserve a lot of credit for that as a concept. I know it's something we spoke about for probably 6 to 12 months probably beforehand. Yep. I think the timing of when it landed, I think, felt quite right. Obviously quite a lot of positive momentum around about the kind of turn of the year.
Yep.
And I think it's almost been that kind of bedding in period for us to get to probably know what the routine would be. Obviously working with the team at Taylor Talks, who have been excellent so far. The facilities are incredible, and a real credit to Jamie and his team for that, what they've pulled together. But exactly that, I think we've almost had one eye on obviously 30 years of Livingston, which we'll come on to, but I think a lot of the guests that we probably wanted teed up for that hopefully tie a lot into 30 years of Livingston, hopefully coming up very soon.
Absolutely. I mean, we have spoke to kind of ex-players and things like that as well, so name drop a couple in terms of Derek Lilly, Brian McPhee, people like that are really keen to come on and share their experiences, so as soon as we can tie that up, we certainly will, and we'll provide you the goods.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we've obviously invested in space and infrastructure here at the club for kind of media facilities, and if that offers another facility, as you say, to work around people's schedule and availability, then all the better for that.
Absolutely. A couple of other wee bits here. Follow a player for a more specific period, maybe a couple of weeks. Provides its own difficulties in itself, that they have to be willing, first and foremost. We can't just kind of follow them around with a camera and a microphone. Our kind of logistics with our own kind of 9 to 5s, let's say, as well. We're not in the building all the time, so it can be quite difficult to do. I love the idea though. I think that'd be really good to see what they're eating, how they're prepping, how they're training, and everything else. Yeah,
and I think it's certainly something we can facilitate with resource that we maybe have in now. Something like that. I mean, day in the life content, I don't think that's anything new. But certainly if it's something that people want to see, then it's something we can try to facilitate throughout the season.
Some feedback on the day in the life stuff. I think the open goal stuff went down relatively well. I think the boys there did a wonderful job of getting some stuff behind the scenes, but being able to do that in-house as well, we could probably gain a wee bit more from what the boys got there.
Yeah, I think there's a very good rapport, I would say, with obviously the squad that have been here, but the new boys as well, I think have settled in really well, and they've kind of built into that kind of ethos. I think there's that rapport hopefully brings out a wee bit more that you maybe don't get from an open goal or a kind of external media company coming in and doing that kind of content. So again, hopefully that can kind of come to the fore and be really positive.
Extended highlights package, so it is something we actually did discuss at our media meeting. So at the moment, as you know, we try and file the goals out at 10 o'clock, the highlights come out about then. The goals come out with your morning coffee, everything that comes with that as well. We're certainly open to doing more extended highlights as well. I know other clubs, for example, that we did discuss on Tuesday at our media meeting was they maybe do a 15-minute package, for example, where you get slightly more than there's a strike at goal, there's a save, there's a corner, there's a goal. And that's kind of what we're at the moment, but we can do more.
Yeah, and I would say, well,
Blair can do more.
I would say in the existing workflow, I don't think that's a major something that is definitely not going to be not achievable in that sense. I was, to be honest, quite surprised to see that people wanted that.
Yeah,
to be quite honest.
Not in a bad way, but
I think we've obviously trialled it the past couple of weeks in terms of just go straight out at 10 o'clock. That's obviously when we can first kind of put them out after the broadcast, or kind of hold back. And then an extended kind of highlights package on the Sunday or the day after, whenever it will be. So certainly something we can add in, and I think that probably sits quite well alongside the pitch side stuff, as you say.
Absolutely. Regular CEO updates. I think he's quite happy to sit on the camera. He's quite happy to kind of put his face out there and everything else. He's more than accessible as well. As you know, we have done a few. Been a wee bit hot and cold. I'm probably going to take the heat on that in terms of, I think we maybe spoke too much about on the pitch sort of stuff. I think people want to know, we get that week in, week out from Davey, players, everything else, kind of pre and post match, so we could maybe do them where it is more business side of things, especially with what's happened with Calvin and everything else.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think that was, again, one that featured quite heavily for a lot of people, just wanting to understand, quite rightly, what's kind of going on behind the scenes. I mean, I'm sure everybody would agree it was an incredibly hectic end to the season. We had obviously the new ownership coming on board right before the playoffs. We then got the playoff campaign, which quite rightly the focus was on the team and obviously the scenes afterwards and building for the new season. But it's certainly something that's on the agenda, and certainly something that we want to bring the fans, because offering up the vision or the kind of plan of what people have in mind for the club, I think from a fan perspective, that's certainly what I would want to hear.
Light-hearted tasks, so it probably ties into following a player around for a day, for example, but I've actually just thrown one in, like if there's an injured player, can he go and make lunch with Mo, for example? Stuff like that. I mean, it's quite fun, it's quite easy, but again, the player has to be willing, Mo has to be willing from a chef's perspective as well, and make sure we don't poison the boys for Saturday.
I think, to be fair, I think that links back to what we were saying mostly about the short form content. There's obviously a resource, maybe a restriction there, but certainly with a bit of planning, a bit of thought. Obviously people want to see that again. It featured pretty thoroughly throughout that. Definitely something that we would like to facilitate, and people just want to see behind the scenes.
Of course,
and ultimately, again, go back to my previous point, probably as a fan, that's what I would like to see. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Interviews with non-playing staff. So Down the Vale has just released with David Badura. From a media perspective, we've got Karen, we've got Jude, we've got people like that could be accessible, but again, it might take a wee bit of kind of hoaxing and prodding and everything else. They have to be comfortable to come and do that as well, of course, which is important. But we did an interview kind of last week with one of our kind of main sponsors at the football club as well, so she kind of highlights and details everything that happens from that perspective as well, which is decent.
Absolutely. I think the one thing I would probably say is, if I was a fan, I certainly wouldn't be afraid to ask, like, what do you want to see next? In response to a lot of what we're kind of posting out, obviously we had the podcast with David to kind of delve behind the social media side of things, how that works as a process and thought, and how it all goes into it. Yep. Obviously we spoke for a kind of commercial side, speaking with Natasha from Home of the Set Fair. I'd probably say, well, what do people want to see? Again, probably the kind of content you want to see as a fan. How does it work beyond the 90 minutes on a Saturday?
Aye, absolutely. Final bit on the kind of longer stuff, again, is probably my other baby, Livy TV to return. We are in talks with a couple of kind of outside companies at the moment. We are hoping to have that up and running for the season starting. So again, live commentary, full 90 minutes, audio, everything else that kind of comes with that. Very similar to the package that we did run kind of last season in Prem. So that was decent as well, I think, hopefully.
No, definitely would agree. Again, I think there was a lot of comments last season, predominantly from people who probably wanted that as a facility. Fortunately, there's a bit of legwork that goes in when we don't have the luxury of the kind of Premiership deal with the cameras, to put it quite bluntly. There's quite a lot of legwork. I think for us it was the reward versus what we put in. I think from a logistic point of view it's quite challenging as well from that side of things, but obviously now being back in the top flight, I think exactly as you say, hopefully these suppliers that we're speaking with can make that run very smoothly. Absolutely.
So that's long form content stuff ticked off. Just on a couple of wee bits. We'll go on to pre-match. So unavailability of players, maybe kind of through the WhatsApp, through myself, we could maybe run something. We don't want to give the team and stuff away early doors. That's the kind of issue with that. But again, happy to facilitate, but we'd probably have to speak to the actual football management side of things prior to doing anything along those sort of lines. Do your homework and figure it out yourself. If we could figure it out ourselves, we wouldn't have asked, but thanks for that. Get in the bar, score predictions, overall feeling, get a wee bit of kind of pre-match build. I really like that, to be fair.
Yeah, I think last season, hopefully people appreciated with a bit more kind of mobile specific content, predominantly through Instagram stories as a platform. I think elements like that and the WhatsApp channel, etc., I think that lines itself really, really well. You've got content essentially on tap pre-match, which again I think people want to see, and if it's something we can facilitate, then we suggest that adds into the staple.
Absolutely. There was actually lots of positivity in terms of this side of things, which was really nice, so thank you for that. The only other thing that we really picked up on was maybe kind of look at the opponents, so maybe provide some sort of stat sheet, last 5 results against each other, top goal scorers, things like that, which is probably quite an easy one as well, so certainly something we could produce.
Absolutely, I think a lot of teams do it. A lot of teams do it in a very nice format graphically.
It's quite basic as well, isn't it? But it just ticks so many boxes.
Yeah, I mean, we're obviously really blessed. We've got Aaron on board as graphic designer for the season. I think, certainly scope for there, which would be, again, if people want to see it and it's something we can facilitate, then absolutely, as long as it works for supporters.
Absolutely. Match day content. So it's currently long and short form highlights and post-match interviews just now. A few suggestions of a gantry walk. No worries, I'm up there anyway, so we can do that, no problem at all. On the day interview, so maybe a few minutes pre-match with a coaching staff or a player or something like that, get the vibe before the game, everything else. Again, we're probably going to have to speak to the footballing department, Jen Dodds, for example, to maybe line that one up, but quite like it. But maybe you get that information in the pre-match sort of stuff anyway. Is that fair?
Yeah, I think that would be fair. I mean, probably how we're wanting to proceed this season, obviously, in the Premier League inherently we're going to get more outside media coming to press conferences. The reality was last season, only really before maybe televised games or the playoff games did we have people coming from the likes of newspapers, kind of broadcast outlets, etc. So David, to his credits, kind of took that on as a concept for us, and again I think he's really tailored the questions and what we're asking really what hopefully fans want to hear, as opposed to the kind of generic injury news, tough game last time out, etc., which I think are a bit rinse and repeat with all due respect. Certainly think this season it's something we would like to continue. I
think it ticks a lot of their boxes in terms of maybe 2 or 3 minutes, they can clip a couple of bits, they can fire it up on a specific website or whatever it may be, where because we control that side in-house and we're going to continue to do that, so you might get the kind of staple answer from Davey through press outlets, but through us he's still going to communicate with us directly as well, so we can still have that 10, 15, 20 minutes, whatever it is, hours at times, and you have to clip it down, but we're still going to be able to ask kind of direct questions and everything else and make it not so generic.
Yeah, and pre-match specifically, to go back to your first point, I think we've got a lot of really strong voices and people that can speak really confidently in front of the camera that are quite engaging, the likes of Marv, Neely, Chipper, etc. Like really, really strong characters beforehand, which would be, I think, would add to the staple. And again, if people want to see that, then if we can facilitate it, absolutely.
100%. People just quickly, I know with our match day content there was something else, people want more of Davey. I mean, you're more welcome to have more of Davey if you want more of Davey.
Is that possible?
If you look at other kind of clubs, kind of interviews and things like that, a lot of them are 5 minutes, 6 minutes, everything else. I mean, at times we've got Davey for 40 and cut it to 15, but I think we tick a lot of kind of boxes in that respect at the moment. Tunnel walk at each game, so you can kind of see the players coming out and everything else, and maybe in behind the players and you can see them coming onto the park. Access issues in certain stadiums, we can do it at home, it's not an issue. Some other clubs don't like it, so we kind of have to obey by those rules as well. So even though there's kind of staple guidelines within the SPFL, the own clubs sometimes like to just tweak that ever so slightly as well, so it can be challenging.
Yeah, I think generally the more reciprocal teams are, I think we are very open, I would like to think, in that sense, i.e. access on the pitch at the end, as an example. I think that's kind of been quite a big one in Scottish football over probably since post-COVID. I think generally if we're able to afford that luxury in these places, it makes for better content as a product across the whole, which I think's, for us as a league, I think probably we should be trying to get to.
Agree. 30 years of Livingston. So the very first one I've got here is just Jim Leesman. Lots of Jim.
Lots of Jim.
He's obviously made a massive impact on our football club. he is more accessible. He did our Player of the Year. He's done a few kind of hospitality visits and things as well. And I think he's always been open to discussing Livingston football.
Definitely. I think 30 years of Livingston as a concept, I think there's probably nobody maybe embodies that and what it probably would mean to people more than probably Jim Leishman. I think the element in nostalgia that hopefully this kind of campaign, and hopefully it's drawn a kind of line in the sand for us to hopefully drive forward as a club and what we want to be for probably the next 30 years and beyond. I think that's quite important. As you say, Jim's been very accessible. We obviously had him in a couple of years ago for a really good blether about his time at Livingston, and really, really great insight into obviously building the club and obviously the success in the Premier League initially and then into Europe. Just really incredible to hear, but that's the stories that people want to hear. And we're saying Jim's probably quite a figurehead for that in terms of past success, etc. But it's stories beyond that as well. It's the players that played under him. It's the players that have played obviously since. We've had a lot of success since then across these 30 years, probably more so than the clubs have in 3-4 times that span.
100%. I think that probably ties into the next bit as well in terms of kind of interviews from previous players. Could probably tie that into kind of down the veil and things as well. That that is what the aim is. So as much as we want to give you the current players away from the 90 minutes, you get to know them a wee bit more. We want to tap into that sort of market as well. So that is it's certainly there. We have our kind of board through the back there that's got about probably over 100 names in it, I think. Some are contactable, some are more difficult to get, let's say. David Fernandez is a dream probably, but
that's the dream.
Let's
not overpromise here.
Probably difficult to get, exactly. You might just get Blair on the next podcast. I'm not entirely sure, but I'd say we are kind of lining that sort of stuff up as well. Fan interviews we're absolutely game for. Absolutely happy with that. I think it's important that we recognise you guys. You guys are the heart of the club. Sounds cheesy. I hate that. Sounds cheesy as anything, but it is so important. And it's so important for you guys to share your memories as well, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. So that probably as a concept for 30 years of Livingston, it was something that we spoke about kind of at length for predominantly the home kit launch, to try and tie that into the campaign for a couple of reasons. Timescale wise, it just didn't really work out, but certainly it's something we want to talk about. We want to talk with fans about their best memories. They might have great stories about supporting the club, interactions with players, interactions with other fans, great trips, memories of games. Do you know, that's what you really want to dive into, because ultimately as a fan that's what you relate to. It'll take you back to a place where you maybe remember, oh, we beat such and such and it was, as an example.
That's the thing,
something we want to drive forward with.
We've got the players accessibly, we can pretty much tap in as and when we want to, but for you guys, you maybe don't have that level of accessibility, so if you do get a couple of minutes from it, it's something that you will remember. I think that's
absolutely.
And we absolutely want to hear them, so it's something that we will certainly look at. Watch along with former players, maybe their best moments, things like that. We could probably tie that into sort of down the veil. We could maybe get little kind of clips within that. Go from there. Events throughout the year. Let's move on to that.
Yeah, so I think this was a big area probably we want to drive forward.
Yep.
When we talk about drawing a line in the sand as a club, we want to probably move ahead and obviously be more engaging with a fan base and what do people want to see. I think for us collectively, we probably want to try and have at least 2 major events in the year. So we've obviously spoke about, well, we're classing it as a live podcast or live question and answer evening held locally with probably key figureheads throughout each of the kind of decades of Livingston, which for me is a very exciting concept. I think if we can get who we think we're going to get, I think that's potentially a very exciting evening. But it goes back to probably the previous point about engaging with fans.
Yep.
Ultimately, it's what fans want to see and harking back to hopefully really good memories for them.
Absolutely. As I say, I mean, that Q&A could be really good, could be a decent environment. Probably looking at those kind of 1995 to 2004, 2005 to 2014 to yesterday essentially, is kind of where we're at. So plus maybe a couple of special guests or whatever, run it for a couple of hours and see we've discussed that, and maybe just keep an eye out on that one. Hopefully there'll be something coming relatively soon, which will be nice. One of the other main events, obviously, Mr. Scott Pittman. I think we talk about him quite a lot, and deservedly so.
Yep.
He's 50 odd goal. Is he 50 on the mark now, is he?
51?
51.
51 after the departed goal.
Should know being the stats guy, but that's something else to look out for as well in due course. So just keep going even when it's tough in the kind of other feedback section. Firstly, thank you. It can become difficult at times being within the environment. It's difficult for you guys and the fans when things aren't going as well. So one of the suggestions was just keep having fun and everything else. Have Danny Wilson race Ryan McGowan. in dinosaurs. Might be the slowest race in the world, I don't know, but
Could be the oldest race in the world.
could be the oldest race in the world. In terms of that, we'd love to do stuff like that, but if we've just lost away from home or at home in a game that we think we should maybe pick up points, it's then difficult to put that out on social media because the vibe isn't quite right, is it?
I think it's all about tone and probably getting an appreciation of where maybe people are at. I mean, last season it was generally incredibly positive, apart from probably a wee spell around about festive New Year when we went on a wee bit of a poor run.
3 games without a win.
But generally, I think we say it quite a lot internally, it's very easy when you're winning games of football.
Of course.
Obviously the season before
the season before, 17 games without victory.
It makes everything impossible. I mean, from a content production point of view, this is definitely isn't a woe is me story, but it's very demoralising turning up for nth game in a row and knowing that the likelihood is we're not actually putting anything out because A, there might not be anything to put out, and B, we don't want to appear tone deaf. We're not going to put out goals in a consolation defeat for the sake of it. You know, we want people to be engaged with the content and really align with probably the vibe of what people are at the moment.
And finally, it's probably one that I was close to, that you now are close to, women's and academy focus. Our women's and academy teams are vitally important to us, to the community, everything that comes with that, and I think we're working quite hard in the background at the moment to provide you with more content and more news rather than it just being there.
Yeah, absolutely. I think certainly this was one that featured quite a lot, which I was pleasantly surprised at.
Yep.
Probably to start off with probably the women's side of things, I think one of our big objectives for 30 years of Livingston is to basically enhance the brand of Livingston, to envelop all these teams within it. It's not just the men's first team and there's a couple of add-ons on it. Do you know, I think it's been pretty clear how we've run things since maybe June or the end of last season in terms of a really consistent brand approach, really consistent graphics, focus on media through photos, videos, etc. Hopefully people can see that and enjoy it ultimately, and hopefully come along on a Sunday to support the girls. The academy is quite an interesting one as well, because I think for a lot of fans probably harken back, there's a element and probably sentimentality. Yep. What the academy's provided to Livingston, guys like Snodgrass, Dorrans, Davidson, McPake, Griffiths, etc. Do you know, guys that went on and had stellar careers beyond us, and I know that's a massive objective for the club now with George on board, and it's just about, from a media perspective, how do we obviously portray that, all the great work that's undoubtedly going to go in week in, week out, and celebrating the success of the players as they hopefully develop and then join the first team environment. Absolutely.
I think it is something we did touch on in our media meeting the other day as well, that we have people within our media environment willing to go in and do that, and everything else is probably testament to them to an extent as well, because, you know, it is exciting. These are the guys who are hopefully going to be wearing that first team kit in the next couple of years from an academy perspective, but the women's team are playing at the second top level in the country, kind of pitting themselves against some of the best and things like that as well, and it's an exciting time for both.
I think it's a really exciting time for the club in general. I mean, incredibly positive end to last season. I mean, I think if you'd offered any fan second place, a playoff win and a Trust Trophy win, I think they absolutely would have took it.
Absolutely.
All coming into a pretty significant anniversary for the club. Trying to tie in, as you say, things like the women's teams, the academy, and bringing this kind of wider club focus and really engaging with the community to drive us forward. Incredibly positive and really, really exciting time.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, first and foremost, again. Your feedback has been taken on board. We've kind of collated everything from within that. We'll continue to kind of work through it. We've taken, say, some of the snippets from everything there. Everything isn't achievable, unfortunately, as much as we'd love it to be. We are kind of big advocates of reading the room, and when we are going to release stuff and everything else, we do have bits in the background kind of ready to go as well. So hopefully it's an exciting season on the pitch, which means we can bring you some really good content away from it as well. But thanks very much, really appreciate it. We will be releasing some further surveys throughout the season as well, so again, honest feedback is imperative within that. So thanks for your time, appreciate it. Come on, Levy.